Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Live Your Extraordinary Life. I am your host, Michelle Rios, and I am thrilled to introduce you to my friend, Neal Phalora. Neal has been on the show before. He was on back in 2023. He is a coach, he is a mentor to entrepreneurs, he's a speaker. He also happens to be an expert on all things human potential and neuroscience. So, we're going to delve into a lot of that conversation today. And I am just thrilled that he was able to join me. So without further ado, Neal, welcome to the show.
I feel very welcome. Anytime to hang out with you is a good time.
Excellent. All right, Neal, we're going to start where I start all my shows, and that is with what does it mean to you, Neal Phalora, to live your extraordinary life?
Yeah. So I think so many people are living life. I had somebody recently in my world that isn't doing very well. And somebody said about that person, they said, well, I don't know if he wants to die, but I'm not sure if he wants to live.
Mm,
And so for me, it's like so much of us are just in that zombie state, that place where we just are barely existing. We don't want to die, but we're not sure if we want to live. Living my best life is getting in that present moment, everything that I'm doing, the pain, the joy, the suffering, the boredom, all of those things, making sure I'm here and present with it. Because if I don't, I just lose out on those moments.
I hear you. I talk a lot about this idea of a lot of people are doing well, but they're kind of on autopilot. They're not intentional about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. They've got a routine. It could be incredibly busy, but they're not thinking about where they're focusing their energy. They're just it's going in the direction of like the loud, what do they say? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, wherever the loudest call is coming from. And usually that's work, right? Your job or what have you, and then your family, your kids, if you should be married and have some. And then there's nothing left over in the tank. So I hear you loud and clear. This idea of just being lit from the inside and alive and present in this moment. It's a privilege because a lot of people don't understand that that is where the extraordinary happens. Not necessarily on a yacht in the Mediterranean. Not that we'll fault anybody for wanting that.
Oh, no, no. One of my best memories ever was being charting a boat in Greece and having fresh seafood. But you're right. You're right. And recently, I think people become both, they become their own prisoner, right? In this process. They don't know how to let themselves out. I think that's one of the secrets of high achieving people, I think, have that most people don't know, right? Or when you're have any kind of thing that you're just living in one modality for, whether it's even if you're immensely successful or immensely wealthy, you can be your own captor and you don't know how to unlock yourself and let yourself out of prison.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Speaking of which, why don't we delve in? I really want to get your perspective on a topic that's near and dear to both our hearts, and that is true wealth. Why don't you set this context for our listeners today and tell us what you believe true wealth is?
Yeah, true wealth is this total holistic wealth. Sometimes even refer to it as wealth consciousness. And it is, I like to think about it as a wealth matrix because a matrix is a living entity. It comprises many points, all of which need to be connected and in balance to really be holistic. And that is living happy, living in joy, living in the moments, it's good health, it's worthiness, it's confidence, it's free from the negative talk inside, and all the torture that we have externally as well. It's like, how can we create a wealth consciousness that aligns us? A lot of people, when they are on that ladder, they're down in stuff, right? They're down in stuff, they're down in fear, they're down in scarcity. For me, that highest vibration is more like you get aligned, you get it, right? From that action, you ground down into your intuition, and from that intuition you rise up into your authenticity, and that really is the frequency where you get to wealth.
Well, and you and I work with high achievers, whether they're leaders or entrepreneurs. We're not talking about the average person. We're talking about people who are already seekers of more. And our listeners are those people. They are high achievers. A lot of them have been incredibly successful in their careers. Some of them have made bank. They're doing very well. But what I want to talk about is kind of going deeper. If everybody's sort of on this search for, I think the primary things are wealth, health, and happiness, right? This combination of the trifecta of the things that matter most to people. When we talk about the financial piece of this, the actual money consciousness of this, can we even detach it from the health and happiness equation, or are they all intermingled?
I think they're all intermingled. And the thing that I really love that I'm no longer afraid to say, is I love the idea of money and revenue. I love it. I think it's fantastic. But you know what it really showed me? It showed me the relationship that I have with myself. People either love it or they poo-poo it or they say it's the root of evil. It's none of those things. It whether you have a lot of it or you have none of it or you have it and you can't hold on to it, all of it is a reflection of the relationship that we have with ourselves and the value that we under how we understand value, how we rate value, how do we place value, how do we see ourselves as valuable. All of those are mirror images. That's why I think yes, they're absolutely connected, and it's a great reflection.
It's interesting because going into that conversation that you just opened the door to, which is our money beliefs, for me, growing up in a small town with very young parents, they were teenagers when they got married, they didn't have a lot of money. Money was tight. And so I have had a lot of time over the course of my life to reflect on how my own money beliefs were first inherited and then later challenged, and I'm grateful to say now completely evolved. But early on, the conversation was just that money's the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. What do you think? I'm made out of money. It was all scarcity mindset and almost like there was a virtue to having nothing, which let me tell you, there's no virtue in having nothing. I think, to your point, I've really sort of come into this place where money is a resource. Money is a means to an end. It really doesn't have its own independent energy. It has the energy we give it. Give me your thoughts on money beliefs, maybe your own family belief systems that you inherited and that so many of us as we grow up sort of just inherit.
Yeah, this is why I love being on your show because you ask this is like this is everything to me. And it's ironic that almost 6 or 7 years ago I gave a money mindset talk about this thing in a high level mastermind, and now here, talking about wealthfulness, this full circle moment. But for me, no joke, Michelle, my dad might have had 2 doctorate degrees, but he came from the base of the Himalayas, literally from a dirt floor farm. True story. I'm riding down on a motorcycle with my dad. We're doing like 35 miles per hour. And my dad stops and pulls over and makes me run across a divided highway because he saw a quarter that he wants me. We pick
Yeah.
we we pick through trash, right? Because my dad, and so in that Richard Kiyosaki vein, he was poor dad, and I have done so much better than my parents, but it has been a struggle to come out of certain things of mindset of money. And let me just the listeners, people listening, why do they did a survey of 12,000 millionaire CEO, and 95% of them still felt unwealthy, uncertain about their financial future, right? 70% of people who win the lottery go bankrupt. So we know that your money story comes from your family, your friends, and your community. And you can have an infinite. I know people, I live in that kind of neighborhood, and there's still people are worried. I know them personally. If there's going to be food on the table when they grew up, there was no food, and they can't get
Mm.
out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be the first to say quickly upon leaving the house and graduating from college started to earn a really healthy salary, and my money mindset had not caught up to where my actual earning had been, and I didn't allow myself a lot of what I considered luxuries out of fear that I might run out. And it got to a point, this is a bit of a money confession here, that my husband and I were sitting down with a financial advisor Now I'm gonna be honest, my son was only about 3 or 4 at the time, so we're talking about 13, 14 years ago, and he said, "Michelle, I have never met somebody as successful as you who spends as little as you do." And I remember thinking, well, that's a good thing. I'm living below my means, and that is such a comfortable space for someone like me to be. And he said, "No, you don't grow money that way. It's almost like you're hiding it under the mattress. You need to enjoy money. So go on the trip. I know you love to travel. When was the last time you did that?" And honestly, it had been over a decade since we had really done anything interesting and exciting on the travel front. And that sort of opened the door and gave me permission to recognize, actually, the more I use it, the more it comes to me. The less afraid of money I am, the more money wants to be around me, the more I attract in. So how about you? What was your experience and where was your transition and pivotal moment?
Yeah, yeah, that's so good, and I see this, and let's just call a spade here. This might ruffle a few feathers, but just because you have a lot of money does not mean you're wealthy. Those are
No.
people put them in the same they're like, "Oh, that guy's wealthy." No, I would venture to say that most people who have a lot of money aren't wealthy. In fact, let me just say it, they aren't. For me, my evolution was, you know what? I'll just be transparent as well. We grew up with I first time I stayed in a hotel was when I was 20 years old because we went camping, right? We had a couch on our porch for patio furniture. We were poor, but my dad just was didn't believe in doing anything unless it was completely functional. You didn't buy it, you didn't use it, you didn't need it unless it just served a function.
He's
So
very frugal. But
very
let
frugal.
just for our listeners, your dad's originally from India, correct?
Yes, yes,
But you grew up in Indiana.
correct.
Okay. So
Yeah.
setting the stage for small town America.
It was yeah, we were turban Indian. My dad wore a turban in an Indian family in the Midwest in the middle of an auto manufacturing town where everybody earned almost 2 or 3 times we did, working in a factory, right? So it was very confusing for me as a kid, my dad having 2 doctor degrees, like, what is going on? Uh, but yeah, for me, I went through we just didn't do so much that when I got out of college, I just went and started doing everything and I got myself into some debt. I got racked up some credit cards and things in my early 20s, right? And I'm just like, what am I doing? Right. And so I recoiled from and after that, I got my money situation straight. But I'll tell you where was the big breakthrough for me. I chased a job for the status. I chased a job for the multi six figures and I had a small sales team and I did all the things. And my big money revolution was it's a lot of money. I'm not happy. I finally
Yeah.
got the thing that everybody, the golden handcuffs, to all the things, the European vacations on the back end of my trips. And I'm just like, this is not, and it was a big realization. I'm like, money is so much more than this. And I saw my friends who had, uh, who did things differently, but they were investing their money differently, right? They were having a different money experience. I'm like, I want freedom that money gives, right? Not just seeking the iconic version of what money is. I'm like, I don't care what it looks like on the surface anymore. I've done that, had nice things. I want the freedom that it gives.
Yeah. And you mentioned something, you weren't happy. You experienced the golden handcuffs. I would also probably argue you weren't at your healthiest either, were you?
Oh, I mean, this is the other thing is that wealth is absolutely health as well. I had probably 70, 75 more pounds on me. I
Mm.
had probably 50 plus symptoms. I was working with gut doctors and people in Brazil, and I spent a couple $100,000 on my health trying to figure out all these diffuse symptoms. I was miserable. I wasn't healthy at all. I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my life now that I'm living a different version of wealth. So you're right. Uh, I was not healthy, mentally or physically.
All right. So let's break this down for our listeners who are interested in really breaking these limiting beliefs that we inherit around money. I'm sure there are going to be some folks out there that still have these beliefs and they're probably directing a lot of their steps unconsciously. But if we're honest, what are the questions individuals need to ask themselves? And how can they begin to break free from these limiting beliefs?
And when you say limiting beliefs, what do you mean? Limiting beliefs around what?
Around money. So, specifically, the money scarcity mindset, like money doesn't grow on trees, money's tight, um, you know, money is the root of all evil, all of these things that give us a negative connotation or a scarcity based mindset around money.
Yes, it's really, it's really easy to say. It's not always, it's very simple. It's not always easy to execute, but it's simple. What you need to do when you think about your own money is most people aren't clear on why they want the money or why they want the things. They're motivated for all the wrong reasons. So you start delving into your and start uncovering your why. What you'll understand is that most people's chase money is around things that other people told. Their core beliefs around money have nothing to do with them uniquely or why they want it, right? They've not sketched it out. They're running after the iconic version of that. It's like, and that's always defeating because you know what? If you're trying to look like you have money and to keep up with other images of money in your mind, your brain will always give you the next thing. We all know this, right? I know very wealthy people, and it's never enough until you are. So, I approach limiting beliefs a little differently in this area. But my primary tenet, until you can feel like you're enough, your money conversation will never be.
So, what are some things individuals can be doing to maybe set this idea of worthiness and being enough in order to then have a healthier relationship with what we're calling wealth?
Yeah, so people always confuse the fact that like, well, if I feel okay with where I'm at, then I won't be a hustler. I won't be able to grind. I won't want this thing. I call BS on it. Like, my version of that is that for me, my wealth consciousness, I know what I have. I absolutely like I live a really good life and I can be honest, I belly ache sometimes. I think I should have more or want more or be in a different place. For me, it's really if I can really understand and appreciate what I have now, I can receive more. The second part of that is I believe is an identity shift. Most people's hands are full of the past and they want to receive something new. So they're saying up here internally, Michelle, pointing to my head, that I want something more. But the history of what's happened, which is below the neck in their body, is just all about it. And unless you can shift out of the things that have happened to you in the past, which means releasing those things, you're going to just keep recreating the same stuff over.
All right, I'm going to ask you to do one thing. You need to get closer to your mic because you're kind of coming in and out.
Okay.
There, much better. And okay, let's talk about that. So, the disconnect between the mind and the body. Are we getting into this whole realm of neuroscience and somatic release?
Do it. Let's do
Tell
it.
me more. Tell me more, Neil. Let's go there.
Yeah, let's go there. So 80% of your mindset is below your neck, right? For most people who are walking around, you know this. You all of us experience this. Go to your parents' house, go to your work environment, show up at a meeting, go to a party where you experience life is below the neck. And so the idea is that the memorization of who you are is really rooted in your body. You can feel the tension. Another question: why, if you smile for 20 seconds, you release hormones that make you feel better. You didn't do anything different, right? If you stand in a power pose, you actually feel better. Let me give you one better. If you hug somebody for 3 minutes, it can be as powerful as taking vitamin C or a flu shot, right?
Mm.
So we cannot that our body keeps score, and that in the process of creating wealth and creating different lives, we're not conscious about what the somatic or the body has stored. We're missing it. Our pure will never overwrite the history is laying deep in your nervous system. We don't experience the world, we experience the current version of our nervous system.
Ooh, that's deep. Okay, let's go through that again. We don't experience the world as it is. We experience the world as our nervous system
Yeah,
is, the state it's currently in.
correct. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why people say, right? That's why people say it's not my thing, but I call it, I say it a little bit different. Your nervous system will align to what's familiar, but what's fulfilling. Or your nervous system will align to what the familiar hell, but not the unfamiliar heaven. That's why when people get bypass surgery, 90% of them go back to eating their lifestyle. It's not that they're bad people. They're not, they're trying to do it by just mental sheer will and force. It doesn't work.
Mm, incredible. Okay, so what are maybe 2 or 3 things that people could be thinking about doing to improve their relationship with money? What are some simple things that you advise your clients in terms of just level setting? We're
Yes.
talking 101 here.
101 is very easy. It's the principle of arigato. This is actually from Ken Honda's work, The Money Influence. People are okay with getting money, but they're okay with letting go of it. And if you want money, that's just how people lose 2 million and the next year make three. We're all just like pissed off at them, like hell, right? It's because when you spend money, it should be thank you, and when money comes in, it should be thank you as well. We in business, I've seen this. I used to be in business development. The second that the small business starts to get money, the shift comes from I'm playing to win to I'm playing not to lose. And most people in their money game, because they don't put money inflow and outflow, playing not to lose. They get a little, and then they
Let's say that again. I'm going to ask you to even get closer to your mic because your audio is kind of coming in and out, Neil. So, yeah, get it a little bit closer to you.
turn up my gain a little bit. Is that better?
Much better, like 100%.
Okay.
Okay. So let's repeat that. So most people initially are playing to win, but then once they win, they're playing not to lose. Explain that a little
Yes.
bit more.
Yes. I saw this in business development all the time. So I'll give you a simple example. I have a great passion. I want to change the world. I have some great idea. I'm a business owner or founder, right? I go into it with heart, my mind, and because I'm in flow, because I'm in that authentic place where I can access wealth, things come easily. My best revenue month was in that space. But then as soon as the money comes, you can see it. Everybody, the buttholes pop and the negative pressure floods in, right? And you see it and see it in the way, and then all of a sudden, even if these small companies, everybody's trying to divide up the kingdom. Oh, what's my percentage? What am I going to get? And now we're playing to win, but how to lose something that I think, right? And when you contract like that, what can you let flow into your life when you're in a
Right.
contracted state? Nothing.
Right. Nothing. And money has to flow. Money has to flow in, money has to flow out.
Yes, without a doubt. Inflow and outflow. Arigato. Thank you. Thank you, universe. Thank you, God. Whatever your language is, I don't give a damn. Just thank, be thankful when it comes in and when it flows out. Because if you're unable to let go, there is no opportunity for something to come.
Let's talk about authenticity and wealth.
Okay.
Authenticity is probably one of my favorite subjects, and I know a lot of people aren't sitting around going, I need to be more authentic. But we're going to break it down on why it is so important to know who you are and to know what you want in order to attract, build, cultivate, foster true wealth. Tell me about your perspective on the topic and that connection between authenticity and true wealth.
Yeah. So I would say it's the place in which it actually makes you wealthy, right? Having true authenticity. But let's define authenticity a little bit because people get it twisted. Authenticity isn't your license to be an asshole, right? Oh, I can just go around and say whatever I want.
Quote
That's
unquote,
not
be myself, whatever that
pe-
means.
yeah. And people just roll it out. Or it's the people pleasers, which I'm one of those. It's the people pleasers moment, and I don't do this, where they're going to say something that really isn't authentic. They're like, well, I'm just going to be really authentic today. I didn't have $100,000 months. I only made 75. I mean, that's not effing authentic either. But when you see that done, right?
Yeah.
That people are calling that authenticity.
Well, and
Authenticity,
let's be honest, they do that because everyone desperately wants to belong and fit in.
yes. Yeah. And I get it, and it's okay. We're human beings. I've done some of all of those versions of that, right? I'm man enough to be able to admit in some variation. But authenticity is being able to get in touch with your desires and your intuition and be able to express those desires in some avatar, right? People think it's inauthentic if you become Sasha Fierce or Black Mama because I'm being really mean. No, authenticity is understanding the root and of your desires and your talents and your intuition and expressing those in some avatar. Because we're not discovering ourselves, we're creating ourselves. And authenticity allows you, gives you the energy to create the next version of you. A lot of people like, well, he's not being authentic or she's not being authentic because they're doing this or that. That's not really them. It's not about who you really are. It's about getting into the root of your desires and your intuition and using those to create the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would even go a step further beyond desire. It's really understanding who you are at a spiritual level as a starting point, really getting in touch with that. And then the expression of that can evolve over time for sure. For those who may be a little unsure of what you mean by the expression of avatar, explain what you mean on getting in touch with that desire and that expression through an avatar.
Yeah. And you know what? You're exactly right. I do believe that, and Michelle said it right. It is getting in touch with who you are. But why I've went away from that definition is so many people have so much trouble. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to discover it, create it, right? There are
Mm.
certain things that are uniquely us, but there's such a heavy mantle of, I gotta find my purpose and my ultimate. And I've done a lot of different things, right? A lot of different kinds of careers, and those have all been expressions of my desires and my intuition. But they've been but the avatar, what I mean by the avatar is that we all need to create some alter ego that we want to step into. It doesn't mean we're being fake. It just means that we're using our authenticity to feed into some version of ourselves that we want to brew up, right? And that was like, I always love using that example. Sasha Fierce, Beyonce wasn't a performer. She wasn't. In Todd Herman's book, Alter Ego, you can read about, he coached Kobe Bryant. They came up with Black Mamba, but it's a version of themselves that they are stepping into. And this gets into the quantum mechanics of abundance because now you set a frequency forth that you are looking to align yourself with. Because look, your past is also an avatar. And that's what people keep going back to. And they keep aligning themselves to that frequency and going, I don't know why the hell I can't produce different results. It's also an avatar. And people say, well, that's not really being you. It's just a version. Choose the version that you.
Yeah. That's so, it really hits home for me because I often talk about it took me to about my mid to late 20s to kind of have that first awakening where I realized I was wearing all of these, I'll call them masks, because that's how I understood them. And that I was underneath, that the true me was so buried deep below all of these roles that I played as a daughter, oldest sibling, first to go to college. You can fill in the blank, high achiever, all of these things, but that who I was as an individual, I didn't really allow to come to the surface, and I think this happens for a lot of us, until I found myself in a really dark place where I had become so disconnected with who I really am at my essence because those roles that I played took on a life of their own that was not connected to desire, that did not have a valid why. I didn't question them, I just did them. And at some point, it catches up with you. What has your experience been around that?
100%. I mean, we get this, it's sort of a term that might be used in some circles. We get this cognitive dissonance where we're like, we feel one way internally, but we're trying to be something else on the surface. And then we lose our identity. But it kind of goes back to Napoleon Hill's book, I think it's called Conversations with the Devil. And I, the construct that I love out of that is constantly asking ourselves, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Because what happens to people in the pursuit of wealth is that they get lost in the drift, right? They get
Mm.
lost in the drift and they don't know what they're doing, why they're doing it. They are on autopilot, right? They're on autopilot. I recently had a friend who was asking me through $100 million business that he was trying to, and I was consulting with him, helping him, asked him a question. I was like, you have a $15 million business and a $60 million business. And I've been part of that, the small part of those as well when he was doing them. Like, what is this going to give you? What are you seeking? What experience are you trying to create by buying this business? I said, I'm not telling you not to buy the business. What I'm telling you is that you need to know your why so clearly because you're at a place now with a $15 million business and a $60 million business that the new $100 million business, if you're not clear, it's also not going to be enough. We do everything for the experience. I know that one of the big gaps in what people are doing is that we are experiential human beings. There is no thinking without feeling. Feeling is 4 times more powerful. We rely on feeling and justify with logic. And that's okay. If you want something, go for it. But be clear and be constantly clarifying along the way, doing the work, why you're doing what you're doing. Don't let it hold you back. You might discover along the way that your why isn't powerful enough and you may need to abandon it. Still go for it. Make quick decisions. Make messy action. Be the person who is clarifying, asking those questions. Oh,
Yeah, and I think being able to let go when you realize if it's not a good fit, to be able to let go. So many of us get married to the, well, I'm so invested in this now because I pursued or I've spent a certain amount of time doing this. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of like being in a marriage that's empty and hollow. Like if there's nothing coming of it and you can't resuscitate it, why are you in it still? And I think that this often happens with careers. This happens with academic pursuits that we feel that there has been a certain amount of time or money invested. And so even if it's not bringing us to where we want to be, we're so reluctant to let it go. It goes back to your point of like the familiar outweighs the unfamiliar when making decisions.
yeah, yeah. The familiar outweighs the familiar outweighs the what is fulfilling, right? We'll just go with what is. And people confuse those. They're not the same thing. We don't. I mean, even Tom Bilyeu, I sat kneecap to kneecap. He told me $400 million did not solve any of his problems and did not do anything for him, right? He said you have to live from fulfillment, and life is a game of neuroscience, and people don't know the work, and they explode. That
Yeah.
was his exact answer.
So, Neil, let's talk about up leveling because a lot of people are doing really well, but they want to get to the next level. And I specifically want to get into the whole realm of energy. And I recall something that you wrote not too long ago that said, people don't buy what you know, they buy who you are, and specifically your energy and your vibration. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So we've all had that experience where you connect with somebody at a party or you're at some business event and the person is so dynamic, you don't even care what they do. You just want to be a part of their world. Or you're sitting and you're seeing somebody at a party and there's just something about somebody's energy across the room. You're like, I need to know that person. So that is the up leveling that we're talking about. That's where you go from a business owner to somebody who it can take themselves out of the business because you're attracting what you want in your business in terms
Mhm.
of clients and results. That's the level. You're attracting the kind of people that work with you. Those things are flowing. And that is attracting who you are.
I love that. Okay, so when somebody like a lot of people, a lot of us, I'll include myself into this equation, worked really hard, hustle and grinded our way to a certain level.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's really hard to continue to just hustle and grind your way to more financially and otherwise, because either there's only so many hours in the day or you start to burn out. Um, Things start to come apart at the seams. Let's talk about the most effective way to level up.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's first take people on the lineage of because what happens is like think about a small business. I saw this all the time. They would scale to a certain point and they would get there and their revenue was much better, but their operations were still a small business operation. So yes, they're doing okay. Yes, they're making revenue. Yes, hey, they're living better lives on the surface, but internally it's a shit show because they've got all these old processes, all of the old mindset, small company mindset. They're doing things taped together and hacked together. And that is very much how people up level themselves. We grind and we push. And let's just be honest, Michelle, when we get to that place, we don't want to do more work. We're like, I busted my butt to get here. I'm not going to sit down and do a whole bunch more work. I just want to sit back and go and get my shrimp cocktail and drink my martini at the bar I like, hang out and get my, you know, $65 DoorDash meal and pay $18, which I did one time, just to get someone to bring me a cheesecake, right? I'm embarrassed to say that, which is stupid. And because I deserve it. It's the same thing that parents go in. Just listen to me. You got to you need to do what I say because I've paid the price, right? But you're not doing the work so that you can be sustainable at that level. And that requires a
Mm.
different level of work. Sustainability is different than who got you there. The person who got you there is the hustle and the grind, but that is not the person who can live there as a sustainable person.
Yeah, and I would even go so far to say that my early success was, derived out of fear. I was able to push myself to new heights out of fear of failure, fear of letting people down, fear of not becoming who I was always meant to be, and then there needed to be a fundamental shift for me to go any further. That got me to a certain level, but then I was stuck. And everything I had done before was no longer working. And it wasn't like it was a few days later I figured it out. It was many years later, after being
Yes.
stuck for a period of time, that I realized it required a whole new Michelle to show up on the scene. And it was actually counterintuitive. So instead of the hustle and grind, instead of investing in the business more than I already had, I started investing more in myself. I started investing more in my mindset. I started investing more in my personal development. And I would get these comments like, "I don't understand how you're doing so well and you're not working harder than I am, or you're even not working as hard as I am and you're cool as a cucumber. What's going on? It's not fair." That
Yeah.
would come from colleagues. I'd be like, "I'm sorry, like, I figured it out. Like, I'm leaning into joy. I am taking better care of myself because I'm the asset." And once I figured that out, that I was no longer literally driving myself into the ground to get what I needed out of myself, that I was investing in order to elevate myself, it was a complete meteoric rise. It was a quantum shift for me,
But let's let,
almost
let's
in no
think,
time.
let's think about that even for a second. If everybody around you is hustling, if everybody around you is struggling, even if all those people are doing well, they're really pushing hard. Do you feel like that you can separate yourself from the herd and do something different? Most of us don't, right? And we become the frequency that we feel. We're the frequency that we feel frequent, right? And even among successful people, it's the
Wait,
same
say that
thing.
again. We're the frequency that we feel
Uh,
frequently.
Frequency. Yes.
Oof.
With a frequency that we feel frequently, and that gets entrained in us in our nervous system, and that gets entrained in us on a spiritual level. And then we feel unable to effectuate to get ourselves off the rails and keep running that train at that speed. It becomes virtually impossible. If that's what institutionalization is, we become institutionalized because we can't separate from it. And if everybody around you is struggling, what's the first thing that happens when you start living a better life and your friends aren't? They light torches for you, man. They're coming for you. They're like,
Oh, yeah, they don't think you're working hard enough. You're taking it easy. You're not
yeah,
in the trenches.
yeah,
Somehow you're not delivering, even if your numbers show otherwise.
yeah. When I was in the corporate environment, even at the executive levels, like, oh, it must be nice to take a vacation day, right? You were persecuted for
Yeah.
resting or whatever else. Heaven forbid you were ever caught meditating or putting your head down for a few minutes or something like that. So you recoup. That was like a cardinal sin. So we have to understand where this dogma comes from and how ingrained it is in us. And when you talked about you people by who you are, if you can't separate yourself from the frequency that you so frequently, you can never change that frequency, right? Be somebody who, and so the slow down at some point in success, the slow down is the catch up. You have to start slowing down because you can never get downloads and intuition and awareness and authenticity at breakneck speeds because cortisol and fight or flight doesn't lend ourselves to new information and new ways of being. It just is like, how can I,
Mm.
even at the multi-million-dollar level, it can still be, how could I survive?
So I heard this story. It's actually a Simon Sinek story. So bear with me if you already know it. I just want to share it with everyone because it's a great analogy. He talks about two lumberjacks go into the woods and they both go at the same time and spend equal amounts of time chopping wood. And except for one of the lumberjacks leaves the woods every day for 1 hour, disappears, but he's actually cutting more wood than the other one. So finally, the first lumberjack goes, I just have to know, where do you go when you disappear every day? And how is it that you're chopping more wood even though you're working less than I am? And he says, Oh, I go home and I sharpen my axe. Isn't that a great story?
I love that. I love that. And what's your take on that, Michelle? Like, how
To
do you break
me, it means, for me as somebody who's always been in professional services, you need to rest. You need to sharpen your tool. And if you are your tool, which I would argue most of us in personal development or professional services, we are our tool. We need
yes.
to take care of ourselves. We need to invest in ourselves. Whatever that looks like for you, if that's go work out, go for a walk, take a break, change the rhythm, this constant push, 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 grind, grind, grind. There's this season for it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not sustainable on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you what it's not, it's what I did this morning. The kids were at home and my wife and I were like, "Let's go grab some breakfast," and we went to a couple different places to get the things we want. And what did Neil do? Work on his phone while I was in the car. I'm
Mm.
like, "Oh, I'll get some stuff done." And then about halfway through it, I was like, "This is not enjoyable." I'm like, I haven't been present with any of this, right? But it's that sharpening of the axe. It's like being able to step away. But here's the other thing I think that people in wealth don't understand. We need the contraction. We are frequency. There is no endless hustle. We can all agree to it mentally, but emotionally, we can't let go of the fact that we just need to grind, grind, grind. But I'll tell you, if you can contract as voraciously as you expand, and you can be so purposeful in your contraction, just like the lumberjack, your next expansion can be way more than anybody who's constantly hustling. Because when you come to rest, you come to center. So it's not how fast can I react, it's how quickly I can come to center.
Yeah, and I think that the key to that though is you have to believe it fervently because you can go through the process of saying I'm going to take the time to rest. But if you do not believe that that actually is what's going to be the secret sauce for you, if you feel guilt about it, if you feel nervous, it's not going to work.
That is I hope everybody heard what Michelle said there. So I'll just say this. The belief is the placebo, right? In drug trials, a third of people get better on the placebo. sometimes more, sometimes it's half. It's the belief that's the placebo. And if you don't have that, you're right. No matter of resting, whatever else, or doing whatever else you think. We're so concerned with the in this society where everything is data and ones and zeros. They're like, is it proven? Is there a study? Is there a video on that? I'll just tell you, most of it, mostly it doesn't matter, but it does matter, like you said, Michelle, if you believe.
Yeah. Anecdotally, it's, a night and day experience for me to be able to say, well, look, I grew up in New England, and it's probably not unlike your small Midwestern town where modesty is considered a virtue. And it's almost like I didn't take any time off. I worked so hard and I barely slept last night. Like somehow that's going to be perceived as harder working and therefore more virtuous, and therefore you belong more, you'll be more lovable, fill in the blank. Whatever that is that we're all reaching for when we throw out those things like, I didn't sleep all night. I was up all night working on that project. And I know we're all guilty of that. But at the same time, I've just gotten to this point where I genuinely will say things like, I am taking a break. I'm going to go focus on whatever it is I need to focus on. And I'm going to let all the other things sit on the back burner so that I can be my best in this scenario. And I know that's what I need to do. And I'm unabashed about it. And it's really interesting. Some of the people that will say, but aren't you worried that you're not getting enough done on on this and that? I'm like, no, because time is a construct that that is man-made and all in good time, and I'm going through this experience as you're going through your experience, and I'm choosing each day to remind myself that this is intended to be a joyous experience. We can say it's a benevolent universe or a you know, a benevolent universe or a hostile universe, but the choice is ours, right, to decide.
Right. And I love that you say that. I mean, that is one of the principles of NLP and good neuroscience, right? Is to, if you're going to do something, let's just think about it. When an athlete gets on the starting line, they don't go up there and get on the blocks if they're running a race and go, "Uh, okay, guess I got to race this race today. I don't know, not really feeling it, right? There's a reason that all major, really serious athletes have a mental performance coach because
Yeah.
that is easily half to three-fourths of the battle, right? So if you're going to take a break, you putting yourself somatically, your body in the state of relaxation, you saying it out loud, and then you feeling the feelings of what it is to relax is the mental, emotional, spiritual muscle that you need. It's a simple, even the somatics is called pediculation. People do trauma release therapy by putting themselves into a contracted state and then opening their body. And they pediculate like a pendulum between those two states, and they teach their body, just like if you grip your hands, like if your listeners, if you just grip your hands really, really tight and then release, and grip your hands really tight and release, your body will start to learn the difference and practice those states. And that's what we need to do when we take a break. That's why rituals are so important in our society historically. We need a ritual. People in ancient societies would hit a gong when the meditation was done or bring you back because you need to cue the second part of your mindset while you're good to go. Oh yeah, dude, it's time to break.
Yeah. And look, we have evidence that this works and in multitudes of places. And but I always love to say, let's look at some of the most visionary people of the modern era, like Steve Jobs, who unfortunately is no longer with us. He became very ritualized about his reading, his meditation, the amount of time he spent really reflecting
Yeah,
versus just doing. And by the way, he had a coach. He had a performance coach.
imagine that. Yes. I mean, we're filling our own cup here a little bit, but you know what? I counted the other day. I think I've had easily 20 plus coaches. I have three right now, right? That is paying the, as one of my friends said, that's paying the dummy tax, right? Because if I spend my life focusing on what I perceive, perceptions, it's faulty, but I'm paying for perspective. because people just talk me out of, oh, I can't get to the next level of my business. I get somebody who's done it, who can talk me and walk me through it. It shortcuts that process by not just weeks, but by years.
Right. And challenging you when you present an idea or notion that's somehow stopping you from progressing. Because normally it's not external forces that impede our path, right? It's our own mental blocks. It's our own mental barriers.
That's really all there is. And it's the same thing as true for wealth as well, right? Whether you regardless of money, to be wealthy. You can be wealthy with barely enough covering your bills to wealthy with, and I'm not suggesting by any means that I consider the level of wealth like just covering your bills, but I'm saying if you're at a place, even if you're listening to this episode and you're in transition and you're somebody who had a lot of money, but you're strapped right now, you still got to be that wealthy person because that's the avatar that's going to create that next level. But if you have those limiting beliefs, guess what? You're going to attract. I've done it. My biggest revenue months where I was living the bandwidth of all my values in every area of my life, physical, my mental, how I was being a parent. I was unstoppable. I mean, I don't mean even to flex here, but it felt like this is just too easy. And then the next month when the frequency goes down, it's like, man, this is so hard. Why is this such a grind? You know, um, I it's annoying to say it that simple, but it is.
It's simple, but it's not easy. I mean, that's the
Correct.
bottom line, right? Like,
Correct.
and we know that. So, all right, Neil, let's land the plane. What are maybe 2 or 3 practices that you participate in on a daily or regular basis that you recommend to others, to our listeners here right now, to create the right ecosystem for wealth generation?
Yes. So one is it's simple, but it's most people aren't doing it correctly. It's gratitude. It's gratitude. But and I'll tell you what the difference maker in the gratitude is that it needs to be a mental, visual, emotional thing. It can't be just like, I'm thankful for my car and my kids. It is projecting it into your mind's eye and it's feeling the receptive nature of gratitude. Sometimes I see every amazing person that's ever come into my life and I just have them give me a hug and I give them a hug back and I work through that. What you're doing for all of you guys who are still think this is poop is you're increasing your heart magnetic signature. We can show this. Increasing your HRV, your heart is beating in more coherence, and as the magnetic center of your body, you're changing what you attract.
Mm.
Magnetic. So we know this now. We knew this 6,000 years ago. Indian and Chinese cultures already knew this, but somehow we people need science now for everything. But it's true. The second thing that I would say in the wealth equation is this is one thing I've been doing lately. Put yourself in the place to experience yourself as wealthy. Put yourself in that frame. I recently went shop for a car. Could I buy it right now? Yes. Is it a smart decision for me right now to put that much money into it? No. Right? Um, I I regularly do things or I'll go out. Sometimes I've gone out and went to an open house of a multi-million dollar home, right? I don't even know if I want that, Michelle. To be honest, I'm fine. I want to be in the venue, giving myself the experience. So many people are going, you know what? When I finally make it, I'll go look at it. I'm saying no. If you want a 4 carat diamond in your ring, go to your jeweler and ask them to bring out the 4 carat ring and try it on.
Yeah.
Have the experience ahead of it, give you and record that in your mind, and then keep revisiting. Be greedy in what you want, right? In that sense, not greedy like you're being an asshole. Be greedy and be okay.
Well, and I think it's about understanding that you're already worthy for whatever it is that you desire. There doesn't need to be something more that you do in order for you to earn worthiness. It might not be the right timing for whatever that is in your life, but the worthiness is inherent. And I think that that's something we need to get really comfortable with. I have really come to the other side of saying, I am worthy of all the things because I spent so much time in my younger years feeling not like I was never enough, and it was never going to reach a place where I felt like I was enough. And I'm trying to think of, like, when the actual, like, light bulb went off for me of realizing, "Whoa, it's inherent." It probably took, I don't know, the 10th reading of Wayne Dyer's, literature around, your worth is inherent in your being, not in your doing. And I remember the first time I read that, I was like, "Well, that's nice." And then it took several other readings before it really clicked for me of like, "Oh, wait, that's the starting point." It has to be the starting point, not the place you get to eventually after you do a certain amount of things to earn your worth. Your worth is there because you're here. Because the fact that you exist, you're worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we couldn't have planned this better, but my 3rd point, which dovetails beautifully to what you just said, as I say this myself all the time, and I teach my clients this, I have enough and I can create. I have
Oh,
enough and I create more, and I just ground down into the frequency of being abundant now and creating more abundance later. So I don't even like the idea of more. It's just I have enough and create more, right? It's like, why not have it abundant in both areas of your life? Because if you're poor right now in your head, it's all that's going to happen in the future.
yeah. Neil, thank you so much for coming on the show. I always love our conversations. They're always insightful, they're always engaging. It's so much fun for me. And I know our audience really appreciates your insight.
Thank you, love.
All right. Until next time, everyone, go and live your extraordinary life.